In the shadow of Mount Golgotha, where the sky mixed with the earth and the sun's rays expanded that morning, a Roman centurion, an imposing figure among the soldiers, attentively observed the unfolding of events. The crowd gathered around the cross where Jesus would be crucified, and a heavy silence hung over the place. While the Roman soldiers were executing the sentence, something extraordinary began to happen. A tremor shook the ground beneath their feet, making everyone feel like they were on the edge of the abyss. The sun, which had just risen, began to darken, casting a shadow over the entire earth. Rocks shattered, emitting thunderous sounds that echoed through the air. The centurion, accustomed to war and brutality, felt his body trembling at the scene he had witnessed. Never before had he witnessed something so extraordinary. As he looked at the man on the cross before him, a feeling of awe mixed with admiration filled his heart. It was then that he uttered the words recorded in Matthew 27 verse 54, "Truly this was the Son of God." This statement, made as Jesus hung on the cross, was a direct result of the supernatural events the centurion witnessed. Today's story is a story of transformation and deep reflection. We will find out who the soldier was who pierced Jesus' side to confirm his death, and we will see what happened to him. But in 5 seconds, to learn more about men and important women, subscribe to the channel and, as a courtesy, leave a like. And let's get to the story. The soldier who pierced Jesus' side, he was not an ordinary soldier or a simple soldier, he was a centurion. The centurion in the Roman military hierarchy was sixth in the chain of command in a legion. He was the officer responsible for commanding a century, giving orders that must be promptly obeyed by the men he led, including the rapid execution of any military formation, and he was in charge of the discipline and instruction of the legion. The centurion, who was much more than a captain, he led an elite troop, having under his command a group of 100 highly trained and obedient men, willing to do anything. On one occasion, one of them said this to Jesus, "I command one, go, and he goes, and another, come, and he comes, and my servant, do this, and he does it." Due to the fact that most of the time the legions were far from their homeland, the centurions were chosen for their command skills and their readiness to fight to the death. In this way, they managed to achieve victories against enemies in much larger numbers, in hostile territories where it was sometimes difficult to receive reinforcements, unlike the enemy. The centurion with the most experience led the first century of the first cohort, being a respected and decorated person. This position in leading the first century of the first cohort was a possibility of merit in being able to one day achieve promotion to chief centurion and lead the first cohort. An enormous prestige, as the first cohort was the maximum elite with the best soldiers in a Roman legion. However, in the episode of the crucifixion and death of Jesus Christ, the Roman officer, accustomed to leading men in battle and imposing law and order by force, was confronted with something that surpasses his human understanding. The earthquake, darkness, and other phenomena that occurred at that time challenged their pre-established notions about the world and the divine. And so, on that dark Mount Golgotha, the Roman centurion had a profound encounter with divinity. His faith, transformed by the presence of Jesus on the cross and the supernatural events he witnessed. He recognized Jesus not just as a man, but as the Son of God himself, whose death and resurrection changed the course of history forever. In the silence that followed the tumult of supernatural events, the Roman centurion, a prominent figure among the soldiers, was struck by deep reflection. His mind, accustomed to dealing with war strategies and imposing order, now turned to issues that transcended the earthly world. He found himself at a crossroads between his obligations as a Roman soldier and the intimate experience he had just experienced. As he reflected on his role and reaction to events that challenged his beliefs, he found himself confronted with the true nature of power and authority. As a Roman officer, his unwavering loyalty to the empire and his iron discipline were fundamental values. However, what he had witnessed that day on Mount Golgotha forced him to question these values. The brutality and cruelty he had witnessed throughout his military career now seemed to pale in comparison to the serenity and dignity demonstrated by Jesus on the cross. He wondered if his role as a Roman soldier was aligned with the principles of justice and truth that he had just witnessed. Furthermore, his reaction to events that challenged his beliefs was a complex mixture of fear, admiration, and perplexity. While his military training taught him to obey orders without question, his personal experience with the divine presence of Jesus compelled him to reflect on the true meaning of power and authority. In this moment of deep reflection, the Roman centurion found himself faced with the need to reevaluate his own convictions and choices. The experience on Mount Golgotha not only challenged his understanding of the world, it also transformed his view of his own role and purpose as a soldier and as a human being. As the Roman centurion reflected on his role and reaction to supernatural events, his mind also turned to the man on the cross, Jesus. He could not help but contemplate the serenity and dignity that Jesus demonstrated, even in the face of the unfair accusations and violence he suffered. Jesus, the Son of God, faced the scorn, mockery, and brutality of the Roman soldiers with impressive calm. From the moment he was brought before the high priest and the Sanhedrin, he faced a series of fabricated accusations without ever deviating from his serene and dignified stance. Before Pilate, Jesus faced more unjust accusations, but his response was one of calm and resignation. He refused to engage in pointless disputes or debates, accepting his fate with a courage that transcended human understanding. Even when he was scourged, crowned with thorns, and ridiculed by Roman soldiers, Jesus bore it all with dignity and humility. His silent stance in the face of violence contrasted with the brutality of his tormentors, revealing his inner strength and his trust in the Father's will. It was during these moments of agony and suffering that Jesus continued to demonstrate compassion and forgiveness. Even in the midst of his own suffering, he spoke words of forgiveness, showing his unconditional love for all humanity. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23:34. The Roman centurion, observing all this, could not help but recognize the divinity of Jesus. His serenity and dignity in the face of adversity were living testimony to his divine nature. He saw in Jesus not just a man, but the Son of God himself, whose power transcended all earthly laws. Thus, in the face of unjust accusations and violence, Jesus not only demonstrated his divinity, but also inspired those who watched him, challenging them to reevaluate their own convictions and beliefs. His stance in the face of injustice and suffering would continue to echo through the centuries, offering hope and comfort to all those facing adversity in their lives. After Jesus' crucifixion, the Roman centurion and soldiers witnessed even more extraordinary events, which heightened the sense that something divine was happening. As they stood on Mount Golgotha, still absorbed by the impact of Jesus' death, something surprising occurred. The surrounding tombs began to open, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were resurrected. These saints, after the resurrection of Jesus, came out of their tombs and entered the holy city, appearing to many. This phenomenon left the soldiers even more stunned and perplexed. For the Roman centurion and his companions, this resurrection of the saints was yet another confirmation that something divine and supernatural was occurring at that moment. In addition to natural phenomena such as the earthquake and darkness, they now witnessed the resurrection of the dead. These extraordinary events only served to heighten the sense that Jesus was not just an ordinary man, but the Son of God himself. His death and resurrection were not isolated events, but part of a divine plan that was being revealed before their eyes. For the Roman centurion, these events challenged all his pre-established notions about the world and the divine. He found himself at a turning point in his life where his faith and convictions were being profoundly tested and transformed. The resurrection of the saints after Jesus' death was further proof of Jesus' divine nature and the truthfulness of his words. For the Roman centurion and his companions, these extraordinary events left an indelible mark on their minds, reinforcing the conviction that something divine and supernatural was happening at that crucial moment in human history. And just like me, you might also be wondering, who was this centurion? According to the Catholic Compendium of the Lives of the Saints, Longuinho, who later came to be known as Saint Longuinho, was the Roman legionary who, with his spear, pierced the side of the body of the crucified Jesus to ensure his death. After witnessing the extraordinary events surrounding Jesus' crucifixion, the Roman centurion, known in Christian tradition as Saint Longuinho, experienced a profound spiritual transformation that would change the course of his life forever. According to the Gospel accounts, because Shabbat begins at sunset, so that the bodies of the condemned do not desecrate the holy day, their legs must be broken to hasten death. Arriving at Jesus, they saw that he was already dead, and to prove his death, one of the soldiers pierced his body with a spear. The spear that pierced Jesus would later come to be known as the Spear of Destiny. According to the Gospel of John 19 verse 34, a soldier pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. The extra-biblical accounts, that is, those not contained in the Bible, say that this liquid from Jesus' body splashed into the soldier's eyes, instantly curing him of a serious eye disease. The soldier, converted, would have abandoned the Roman army, becoming a monk traveling through the region of Caesarea and Cappadocia, in present-day Turkey. Impacted by the divine presence of Jesus on the cross and by the supernatural events that surrounded him, Saint Longuinho faced an internal journey of reflection and rediscovery of his faith. He realized that his former life as a Roman soldier, although filled with earthly honor and glory, was empty in comparison to the spiritual truth he had witnessed. Guided by the inner call he felt in his heart, Saint Longuinho decided to abandon his old life and follow in the footsteps of Jesus. He renounced earthly power and glory in search of the true peace and spiritual meaning he found in Christ. However, this decision did not come without cost. Saint Longuinho faced persecution and opposition for his faith. The Roman authorities, seeing him as a threat to the status quo and social stability, subjected him to interrogations, threats, and torture as a way of coercing him into renouncing his faith and ceasing his preaching. Catholic tradition reports that Longuinho was arrested and tortured because of his Christian faith, had his teeth pulled out and his tongue cut out. Despite the indescribable suffering to which he was subjected, Saint Longuinho remained steadfast in his devotion to Jesus Christ until the last moment of his earthly life. His courage and resilience in the face of persecution have inspired countless Christians over the centuries, strengthening their own faith and dedication to the gospel. Thus, Saint Longuinho became a living example of the transformative power of Jesus' redeeming love. His life is a testimony to Jesus' ability to free, heal, and lead people to lives of purpose and meaning, regardless of their background or circumstances. The story of Saint Longuinho reminds us that following Christ may involve facing challenges and adversities, but it also shows us that the love of Jesus sustains us and enables us to overcome all tribulations. It is a story of courage, faith, and perseverance that continues to inspire and strengthen the hearts of those who seek to follow in Christ's footsteps to this day. In the moving conclusion of this narrative of faith and transformation, we are invited to join Longuinho on his inspiring spiritual journey. The story of this Roman centurion challenges us to reflect on our own convictions and drives us to seek a deeper connection with the divine. May each step taken by Longuinho inspire us to move forward with courage and determination in our own journey of faith. And to continue exploring stories like this, full of meaning and inspiration, I invite you to subscribe to our channel, share this video with your friends and family, and leave your comments below, sharing your own reflections and experiences. Let's together spread this message of hope and redemption, illuminating the hearts of those who seek answers and comfort amid life's uncertainties. Be part of this community of faith and learning, where each story takes us closer to the eternal truth that Longuinho so courageously embraced. So, subscribe now, share this video with your friends, and leave in the comments what powerful lesson you take from this story for your life, and join us on this extraordinary journey of spiritual discovery. May God bless you, and see you in our next video.